Before we dive into today's story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. And when we reach the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Now, settle in and enjoy. The marble floors of Harrington Tower gleamed under the afternoon sun, streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. Madison Hayes stood in the elevator, watching the numbers climb higher and higher. 57, 58, 59. Her reflection in the polished steel doors showed a woman trying desperately to look confident. Navy pencil skirt, cream blouse, hair pulled back in a neat bun. Professional, competent, not at all like someone whose life was falling apart. The elevator chimed. 60th floor, executive suites. Madison stepped out into a lobby that screamed money. Real money. Not the kind her family used to have before her father's business collapsed. Not the kind they pretended to have now. This was billionaire territory. The receptionist, a woman with perfect posture and a smile that didn't reach her eyes, glanced up. "Miss Hayes, Mr. Harrington will see you now. Conference room 3, down the hall to your left." Madison's heels clicked against the marble as she walked. Each step felt like a countdown. She'd been dreading this meeting for 3 days, ever since her boss had called her into his office with that look. "You know the Harrington account is our biggest client. We can't afford to lose them. You're our best project manager. Fix whatever's wrong." But Madison knew what was wrong. The problem wasn't the marketing strategy or the budget allocation. The problem was Jackson Harrington himself. Cold, demanding, impossible to please. She'd heard the stories. 3 project managers before her had quit within weeks. One had apparently cried in the parking garage. Madison pushed open the conference room door. The space was massive. A table that could seat 20. Windows overlooking the entire city. And at the head of the table, reviewing documents with laser focus, sat Jackson Harrington. He didn't look up immediately. Madison used those few seconds to study him. Early 30s, maybe. Dark hair styled with the kind of casual perfection that probably cost more than her monthly rent. A charcoal suit that fit like it had been sewn directly onto his body. Sharp jawline. And when he finally raised his eyes to meet hers, Madison felt her breath catch. Cold gray eyes. Assessing. Calculating. Not unkind, exactly, but utterly devoid of warmth. "Miss Hayes." His voice was deep, controlled. "You're 7 minutes late." Madison glanced at her watch. "Actually, I'm 3 minutes early. Our meeting was scheduled for 2 o'clock. He tapped his phone screen. "I sent a revised meeting time at 1:15. Check your email." Madison's stomach sank as she pulled out her phone. Sure enough, there it was. An email sent 90 minutes ago, moving their meeting up. She'd been in back-to-back calls all morning. Hadn't checked. "I apologize," she said, forcing her voice to stay level. "I didn't see the change." Jackson leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. "In my world, Miss Hayes, not seeing something isn't an excuse. It's a failure of preparation." The words hit like a slap. Madison felt heat rising in her cheeks, anger and embarrassment mixing. She wanted to snap back, wanted to tell him that sending last-minute changes and expecting instant compliance was arrogant and unreasonable. But she needed this account. Her company needed this account. So instead, she set her bag down, pulled out her tablet, and met his gaze directly. "You're absolutely right. It won't happen again. Now, shall we discuss the campaign strategy, or would you prefer to continue critiquing my email habits?" For the first time, something flickered in those cold eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or was it amusement? Jackson gestured to the chair opposite him. "Sit." The next 40 minutes were brutal. Madison presented her team's marketing proposal, a carefully crafted strategy to reposition Harrington Industries' public image. She'd spent weeks on this. Research, focus groups, data analysis. Jackson tore it apart. This demographic targeting is too broad. This messaging is generic. These projected metrics are optimistic to the point of fantasy. With each criticism, Madison's jaw tightened. But she didn't back down. She countered his points with data, defended her choices with logic, adjusted elements that genuinely needed improvement. Somewhere around the 30-minute mark, she realized something. Jackson wasn't being cruel. He was testing her. Finally, he closed the proposal document on his tablet. "This is better than the last 3 pitches I've seen." Madison blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "It's still not good enough," he continued, "but it's better. Revise these sections." He rattled off a list of changes. "Present, again Friday. 3 o'clock. Don't be late." Madison stood, gathering her materials, mind already racing through the revisions. As she reached the door, Jackson's voice stopped her. "Miss Hayes." She turned. That was a competent defense of mediocre work. "Next time, bring me excellent work that doesn't need defending." Madison's response came before she could stop herself. "And next time, Mr. Harrington, try offering constructive feedback instead of performing superiority. Maybe you'll get better results." She walked out before he could respond, heart pounding. In the elevator, reality crashed down. Had she really just snapped at Jackson Harrington? The man who could end her career with one phone call? Her phone buzzed. An email. From Jackson. Subject line, Friday meeting. Her finger hovered over the notification, afraid to open it. Finally, she tapped. The message was brief. 3 o'clock. Don't bring mediocre work. And Miss Hayes, I look forward to seeing if your passion matches your competence. J.H. Madison stared at the screen. Was that respect? Or was she reading too much into 7 sentences from a man made of ice? The elevator doors opened. Madison stepped into the lobby, into the noise of the city, into the uncertainty of what she'd just started. One thing was certain. Friday's meeting was going to be interesting. Madison spent the next 3 days living on coffee and determination. Her apartment became a war room, papers spread across every surface. Her laptop never closed. Her team, bless them, worked overtime without complaint. By Thursday night, the revised proposal was sharp, focused, backed by irrefutable data. If Jackson Harrington wanted excellence, she'd deliver excellence so bright it would burn his retinas. Friday arrived with typical New York aggression. Rain, traffic, a subway delay that nearly made her late. Madison arrived at Harrington Tower at 2:45, breathless and slightly damp. The same receptionist gave her the same artificial smile. "Conference room 3. He's waiting." Madison pushed open the door, ready for another battle. But the scene was different this time. Jackson stood by the windows, phone pressed to his ear, his back to her. His voice was low, tense. "I don't care what the board thinks, Grandma. I'm not getting married just to satisfy some outdated clause in Grandfather's will." Madison froze. Should she leave? Announce herself? Jackson continued, unaware of her presence. 30 days, that's insane. You can't seriously expect me to find a wife in 30 days. A pause. His shoulders tightened. "Yes, I understand the stakes. Yes, I know I'll lose controlling interest in the company. But marriage isn't a business transaction." Another pause, longer this time. "Fine. Yes, I'll figure something out." He ended the call and stood there, staring out at the rain-soaked city. Madison cleared her throat softly. Jackson spun around. The mask of control slipped for just a second. She saw frustration, exhaustion, something almost human. Then the ice returned. "Miss Hayes, you're early." "I'm on time," she corrected gently. He glanced at his watch, and for the first time since she'd met him, Jackson Harrington smiled. It wasn't much, just a slight curve of his mouth, but it transformed his entire face. "Point taken." He gestured to the table. "Show me what you've prepared." Madison set up her presentation, hyper-aware of his presence as he sat down. This time, the meeting was different. She presented with confidence, backing every claim with research, anticipating objections before he could voice them. Jackson listened intently, asked sharp questions, but there was something else in his expression now. Respect. When she finished, he leaned back. "This is excellent work." Madison tried not to look shocked. "Thank you. The demographic segmentation here," he tapped the screen, "is particularly insightful, and these projected metrics are actually achievable." "That's almost a compliment," Madison said before she could stop herself. "It is a compliment." Jackson's gray eyes met hers. "Take it." The air in the room shifted. Madison became acutely aware that they were alone, that rain was drumming against the windows, that Jackson Harrington was looking at her not like a project manager, but like a woman. She broke the moment by standing up. "So we're moving forward with the campaign?" "Yes." Jackson stood as well, and Madison realized how tall he was, how close they were standing. "But there's something else I need to discuss with you." Madison's professional instincts flared. "If this is about budget, we can adjust. It's not about the campaign." He paused, and something in his expression made her heart rate kick up. "It's about what you overheard when you came in. I wasn't eavesdropping," Madison said quickly. "I know, but you heard enough." He walked to the windows, hands in his pockets. "My grandmother controls the family trust. When my grandfather died, he left a clause in his will. I have to be married by my 35th birthday, or I lose controlling interest in Harrington Industries." Madison's eyes widened. "That's archaic. That's my grandfather. Traditional to the point of tyranny. He believed family came first. Legacy. Heirs. The whole dynasty package." "When's your birthday?" 3 weeks from tomorrow." Madison did the math. "So you have 30 days to find a wife?" Jackson turned to face her. 29 now. We're losing daylight." "This is insane," Madison breathed. "You can't just marry someone in 30 days. You barely know me, but you seem intelligent enough to grasp that I'm in an impossible situation." His voice was level, but she heard the strain underneath. "Every socialite in New York knows about the will. I can't go on a single date without it turning into an audition for the role of Mrs. Harrington. I'm drowning in opportunists." "Then don't marry anyone," Madison said. "Let the board have the company." Jackson's laugh was bitter. "Harrington Industries isn't just a company. It's 3,000 employees, contracts worth billions. My grandfather built it from nothing. I'm not letting it fall into the hands of vultures who'll strip it for parts." Madison started gathering her materials. "Well, I hope you figure something out. But I should go. Miss Hayes." "Wait." Something in his tone made her stop. Jackson crossed the room until he was standing directly in front of her. "What I'm about to ask is completely inappropriate." Madison's heart hammered. "Then maybe don't ask it. I need a wife, not a real one. A temporary arrangement. Someone smart enough to handle the scrutiny, professional enough to maintain boundaries, someone who won't fall for the fantasy." Madison stared at him. Are you asking me to marry you?" "Contractually." "Yes." The room spun. This was crazy. Completely insane. No rational person would even consider this. I have a career, Madison managed. A life. This would upend everything. I'll compensate you. Name your price. It's not about money. Isn't everything? She should leave, should walk out and never look back. But then she thought about her family, her father's failed business, her mother's medical bills, her younger sister's college tuition that was coming due. And she thought about the challenge of it, the sheer audacity. Madison met Jackson's eyes. If, and this is a massive if, I even considered this insanity, what exactly would this arrangement entail? Jackson's expression shifted. Not quite relief, but something close. Marry me. Attend necessary events as my wife. Maintain the appearance of a relationship. After a reasonable period, we divorce quietly. You walk away with financial security. Madison's mind raced. This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Probably. So why am I not saying no? She took a breath. I need time to think. You have until Monday. That's 3 days, she protested. I have 29 days to solve an impossible problem. 3 is generous. Madison grabbed her bag. This conversation never happened. Until Monday, Jackson said, when you come back and say yes. The confidence in his voice should have annoyed her. Instead, it sent an entirely inappropriate shiver down her spine. Madison walked out of Harrington Tower into the rain, her mind a storm of its own. Marry Jackson Harrington, the coldest man in New York, for money, for appearances, for 30 days of pretend. She should say no. Any sane person would say no. But Madison had never been good at taking the easy path, and something told her that saying yes would change everything. Madison spent the entire weekend in a state of controlled panic. Saturday morning, she made a pros and cons list. Pros: financial security, her family's problems solved, an unbelievable story she could never tell anyone. Cons: completely insane. Career implications. What if feelings got involved? She scratched out that last one immediately. Feelings. With Jackson Harrington. The man was made of ice and business decisions. No danger there. Sunday afternoon, she called her best friend Olivia. You sound weird, Olivia said immediately. What happened? If someone offered you a lot of money to do something that wasn't illegal, but was definitely crazy, would you do it? Madison, what are you involved in? I'm asking hypothetically. Hypothetically? Olivia's voice dripped skepticism. How much money are we talking? Enough to solve every financial problem I have. Then yes. Obviously yes. Unless it's degrading or dangerous. Is it either of those things? Madison thought about Jackson's cold gray eyes, his controlled demeanor, the way he'd looked at her in that conference room. I don't think so. Then why are you even debating? Look, Maddie, you've spent your whole life being responsible, playing it safe, being the good daughter. Maybe it's time to do something wild. Madison ended the call and stared at her reflection in her apartment window. The city stretched out below her, millions of people living their careful, predictable lives. When had she become so careful? So predictable. Monday morning arrived with cruel brightness. Madison dressed in her most professional suit. Armor. She walked into Harrington Tower at 9 o'clock sharp. The receptionist's eyebrows rose slightly. Do you have an appointment? Tell Mr. Harrington that Madison Hayes is here with an answer. 5 minutes later, she was back in conference room 3. Jackson stood by the windows again. It seemed to be his thinking spot. He turned when she entered. His expression gave nothing away. Well? Madison set her bag down carefully. I have conditions. Jackson's mouth curved. Just barely. I'm listening. First, this is purely business. A contract. No real relationship expectations. Agreed. Second, we maintain completely separate living spaces. I'm not moving into some mansion and playing house. Fine. The penthouse has multiple bedrooms. We can establish appropriate boundaries. Wait. Madison held up a hand. I'm moving into the penthouse? How else will we convince people we're married? Fair point, she continued. Third, I keep my job. This doesn't interfere with my career. Understood, though you may need to reduce your hours for appearances. Fourth, and this is non-negotiable. Madison met his eyes. When this is over, you give me a glowing recommendation. Help me start my own consulting firm. Jackson studied her for a long moment. You've thought this through. I'm not an idiot, Mr. Harrington. If I'm selling 30 days of my life, I'm getting more than just money. Something flickered in his expression. Respect, maybe. Or intrigue. Done. Anything else? Yes. Madison's heart pounded. I want to know why you chose me. You could ask anyone. Why a woman you've known for less than 2 weeks? Jackson walked closer. Stopped just inside her personal space. Because when I criticized your work, you defended it. When I was condescending, you called me out. Every other woman I've met in the past month has been performing, auditioning. You're the first person who's treated me like a human being instead of a prize. The honesty in his voice surprised her. And because, he continued, you're smart enough to handle this without getting hurt. You don't strike me as someone who confuses business with emotion. Madison ignored the slight sting of that assessment. So when do we do this? Today. Madison choked. Today? The clock is ticking. I have a lawyer drawing up contracts. We sign this morning. City Hall this afternoon. Married by 5 o'clock. This is insane. You said that already. Yes, well, it bears repeating. Jackson pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. My assistant is arranging everything. The contracts will be ready in an hour. That gives you time to review with your own lawyer if you'd like. I don't have a lawyer on speed dial. I do. He glanced up. I'll have someone meet you. Independent counsel. I want this airtight and fair. Why? Madison asked. You hold all the cards. Why make sure I'm protected? Because despite what you might think, I'm not a monster. Just pragmatic. The next 3 hours passed in a blur. Contracts, lawyers, terms and conditions spelled out in exhaustive detail. Duration of marriage, minimum 1 year. Financial compensation, a sum that made Madison's eyes water. Post-divorce support, business consultation, recommendation letters, seed funding for her own firm. Jackson had thought of everything. At 2 o'clock, they stood in the lobby of City Hall. Madison wore the same suit she'd put on that morning. Jackson had brought a simple bouquet of white roses. For appearances, he said. The ceremony was brief, sterile. A clerk who'd performed thousands of marriages and clearly didn't care about this one. Do you, Jackson, Edward Harrington, take Madison Claire Hayes to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. Do you, Madison Claire Hayes, take Jackson, Edward Harrington, to be your lawfully wedded husband? Madison looked at Jackson. At this stranger she was binding herself to. At the cold, controlled man who'd somehow convinced her to take the wildest gamble of her life. I do. You may kiss the bride. The clerk's voice was bored. Jackson leaned in. It was clearly meant to be perfunctory. A brief press of lips to satisfy the legal requirement. But the moment their mouths met, something sparked, brief, electric. Gone before Madison could process it. Jackson pulled back, his expression unreadable. "Mrs. Harrington," he said quietly. The name sent an unexpected thrill through her. They signed papers, received a marriage certificate, walked out of City Hall as husband and wife. On the steps, rain beginning to fall again, Jackson turned to her. "We need to tell my family. Tonight. There's a dinner at my grandmother's estate." Madison's stomach dropped. "Tonight? You don't believe in transition periods, do you?" He almost smiled. "Where's the fun in that?" A car waited at the curb. Black. Expensive. A driver who didn't blink at the sudden appearance of a new Mrs. Harrington. As they pulled into traffic, Madison stared at the marriage certificate in her hands. "What have I done?" Jackson's voice was quiet. "Having regrets? Ask me in a year." His hand covered hers briefly. Warm, reassuring. "Thank you," he said, "for taking a chance on this insanity." Madison looked at him, at the man who was now legally her husband. She should be terrified, should be planning her exit strategy. Instead, she felt something else entirely. Alive. For the first time in years. Utterly, terrifyingly alive. "Don't thank me yet," she said. "We still have to convince your family, and the entire city, and ourselves, that this isn't the stupidest decision two intelligent people have ever made." Jackson's laugh was low. "Genuine. I think we're up to the challenge." As the car navigated through Manhattan traffic toward an estate in Westchester, Madison realized something. The easy part was over. Now came the real performance. Being Mrs. Jackson Harrington. And God help her, part of her was curious to see how good an actress she could be. The Harrington estate rose from the Westchester landscape like something out of a Gothic novel. Stone walls, ivy, windows that glowed with warm light against the evening darkness. Madison stared through the car window, her stomach tight with nerves. "You grew up here?" Yes, Jackson's voice was neutral, but his jaw was tense. "Should I be intimidated?" "Probably." Madison turned to him. "You're not exactly selling this." He met her eyes. "My family is complicated. My grandmother is formidable. My mother is perpetually disappointed in me. My sister is the only one who might actually be happy about this." "Great. So 2 out of 3 will hate me on sight." Jackson's mouth curved slightly. "They'll try to intimidate you. Don't let them. And remember, we're newlyweds. Desperately in love. Couldn't wait another day." Madison's laugh was slightly hysterical. "This is a terrible idea. Too late for cold feet, Mrs. Harrington." The car stopped in front of massive wooden doors. Jackson came around to open her door, offering his hand. When she took it, he leaned close, his breath warm against her ear. Act 1 begins now. Inside, the house was even more intimidating than the exterior. Marble floors, oil paintings that were probably worth more than Madison's childhood home, a chandelier that could kill someone if it fell. A woman appeared in the doorway of what looked like a formal living room. Early 60s, silver hair styled perfectly, wearing pearls and a cashmere twin set. Her eyes were the same steel gray as Jackson's. "Grandmother." Jackson's voice was respectful. "This is Madison, my wife." The silence that followed could have shattered glass. The woman, Eleanor Harrington, studied Madison like a specimen under a microscope. "Your wife." Eleanor's voice was cut crystal. "How interesting. We were married this afternoon," Jackson continued. "At City Hall. Madison. This is my grandmother, Eleanor Harrington." "Pleased to meet you," Madison managed, extending her hand. Eleanor's handshake was brief, cool. City Hall. How economical. We didn't want to fuss, Madison said, finding her voice. We wanted to start our lives together immediately. How romantic. Eleanor's tone suggested it was anything but. Tell me, my dear, how long have you and my grandson been acquainted? About 2 weeks, Jackson said, before Madison could answer. When you know, you know. Eleanor's expression was glacial. Indeed. Well, come in. Your mother and sister are in the sitting room, Jackson. I'm sure they'll be thrilled by this news. The sitting room was enormous. Another fireplace. More intimidating furniture. A blonde woman in her 50s sat on a sofa, wine glass in hand. Next to her, a younger woman with dark hair, and Jackson's eyes looked up from her phone. Mother. Scarlett, Jackson said. I'd like you to meet Madison. My wife. The blonde woman, Jackson's mother Victoria, set down her wine glass with visible care. I'm sorry, did you say wife? We got married today, Jackson confirmed. The dark-haired woman, Scarlett, jumped up. Oh my God! She crossed the room and hugged Madison without warning. Welcome to the family! This is amazing! At least someone was happy. Victoria stood more slowly. This is very sudden, Jackson. Scarlett released Madison, grinning. It's romantic. Love at first sight. Is it love? Eleanor asked quietly. Or is it convenient timing? The room temperature dropped about 20 degrees. Madison felt Jackson tense beside her. What exactly are you implying, grandmother? I'm implying that you have 3 weeks until your birthday, that you stand to lose everything if you're not married, and that suddenly, miraculously, you found a bride. She looked at Madison. Forgive me for being suspicious. Madison stepped forward before Jackson could respond. Mrs. Harrington, I understand this looks convenient, but I fell in love with your grandson before I knew anything about a will or a deadline. I'm not here for money or status. I'm here because Jackson is brilliant and driven and actually kind of funny when he's not trying to intimidate people. Scarlett laughed. Oh, I like her. Victoria's expression softened slightly. You think my son is funny? He once made a joke about quarterly earnings that made me snort coffee, Madison said. It was a very dark moment. Even Eleanor's mouth twitched. Barely. Jackson's hand found Madison's, squeezing gently. The smallest acknowledgement. You're good at this. The evening proceeded with the awkwardness of a formal dinner, where no one quite believed the central fiction. But Madison held her own. When Victoria asked about her background, she was honest about her family's struggles. When Eleanor questioned her career plans, she spoke confidently about consulting. When Scarlett asked how Jackson proposed, Madison improvised. He asked me in a conference room, she said. Very romantic. Jackson raised an eyebrow. I believe my exact words were, "This is completely inappropriate." And then you asked anyway, Madison shot back, because you're fundamentally incapable of resisting a challenge. Scarlett laughed again. Oh, she definitely knows you. By dessert, the atmosphere had thawed slightly. Victoria was asking Madison about her design ideas for the penthouse. Scarlett was planning a proper wedding reception. Even Eleanor seemed marginally less hostile. As they prepared to leave, Eleanor pulled Madison aside. You seem like an intelligent woman. Yes, I think I am. Then you understand that marriage is more than paperwork. It's legacy. Family. My grandson might see this as a business arrangement, but I don't. If you're going to be a Harrington, even temporarily, you'll be held to our standards. Madison met the older woman's steel gaze. Mrs. Harrington, I don't know what the future holds, but while I'm married to your grandson, I'll give this everything I have. I'm not interested in being a placeholder. Eleanor studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Good. Jackson might have chosen you for convenience, but perhaps you'll surprise us both. In the car heading back to the city, Madison exhaled. That was terrifying. You were amazing, Jackson said. Scarlett loves you. Mother's warming up. And my grandmother? She respects you. I think that's more valuable than affection. Madison looked at him, his profile sharp in the passing streetlights. Why do I get the feeling your family is more complicated than mine? Because they are. He glanced at her. But you handled them better than anyone I've brought home. Anyone? How many women have met the Harrington clan? His smile was wry. You're the first in about 5 years. Madison's heart did something complicated. Stop that. This is business. When they arrived at Jackson's penthouse, her apartment's worth of belongings already moved in by an efficient assistant, Madison stood in the massive living room feeling utterly out of place. Your bedroom is down this hall, Jackson said, gesturing left. Mine is the opposite direction. We share the main living spaces. The kitchen, obviously. There's a home office you can use. Thank you. An awkward silence fell. We're married, Madison said finally. This is so weird. Jackson loosened his tie. Exceptionally weird. But we survived dinner. That's progress. Madison kicked off her heels, suddenly exhausted. I'm going to bed. Big day. Marrying a stranger. Meeting his terrifying family. The usual Monday activities. Jackson moved closer. Stopped just in front of her. Madison. She looked up. Thank you. For all of this. For being remarkable. Before she could respond, he leaned down and kissed her forehead. Gentle. Brief. Completely unexpected. Good night, Mrs. Harrington. He walked away, leaving Madison standing alone in the massive penthouse, her heart beating entirely too fast. This was business. Just business. So why did that simple kiss feel like the beginning of something real? Madison woke up in a bedroom the size of her entire previous apartment. For a disorienting moment, she forgot where she was. Then reality crashed back. Married. To Jackson Harrington. Living in a penthouse. Playing the role of devoted wife. She checked her phone. 6:30. A text from Jackson, sent an hour ago. Coffee ready in the kitchen. Help yourself. I'm in my office. Professional. Distant. Exactly what she should want. So why did part of her feel disappointed? Madison found Jackson in a home office that looked like a magazine spread. He was on a video call, his hair slightly mussed, reading glasses perched on his nose. The glasses were new. They made him look softer, more human. He glanced up, gestured to the coffee he'd left on the desk for her, and continued his conversation about market projections. Madison took the coffee and retreated. Don't get comfortable. This is temporary. By 8 o'clock, Jackson emerged. He'd showered and changed, back to looking like the intimidating CEO she'd first met. We need to discuss logistics, he said. Very romantic, Madison murmured into her coffee. He almost smiled. The board is announcing our marriage today. There will be media attention. You should prepare for reporters. Wonderful. My mother always said I'd be famous someday. Jackson pulled out his tablet. My assistant has arranged for a stylist to come by this afternoon. For the upcoming events, you'll need a wardrobe. Hold on. Madison set down her coffee. I have clothes. Not like these clothes. Jackson's tone was matter-of-fact, not insulting. You'll be photographed constantly, analyzed, criticized. High society is vicious. I won't change who I am, because some socialites might judge my shoes. I'm not asking you to change, just to armor up. The fashion is the armor. Madison considered this. Fine. But I'm keeping my own style. The stylist can work within parameters I set. Agreed. A pause. Then Jackson added, For what it's worth, I don't think there's anything wrong with how you look. Madison's traitorous heart fluttered. Stop that! She went to the office that day, bracing for gossip. Her co-workers delivered. Madison! You got married? Someone gasped. To Jackson Harrington? The questions came rapid fire. When? How? Why didn't you tell anyone? Madison stuck to the script. It was a whirlwind. We fell hard. We didn't want to wait. Her boss called her into his office, his expression somewhere between shock and calculation. Obviously, Harrington Industries is still our client. Obviously. Madison kept her voice level. But you're married to the CEO now. That creates a conflict. Are you asking me to recuse myself from the account? He hesitated. I'm saying we need to discuss how to handle this going forward. I'll work on other projects, Madison said. Bring someone else onto Harrington. I want to keep this professional. The rest of the day was a surreal mixture of work and wedding congratulations. Madison fielded texts from Olivia demanding details, avoided her mother's phone calls because she wasn't ready for that conversation yet, and tried not to think about the fact that she'd married someone she barely knew. That evening, the stylist arrived, a whirlwind of a woman named Iris, who looked at Madison with an artist's eye. Show me your current wardrobe, darling. Madison opened her closet. Iris made a non-committal sound. We can work with this. You have good instincts. Now let's just elevate. The next 2 hours involved trying on what felt like 100 outfits. Iris talked constantly about silhouettes and color palettes and power dressing. Jackson appeared halfway through, leaning in the doorway. How's it going? Your wife has excellent bone structure, Iris said. And she actually has opinions. Refreshing. Most women just want me to tell them what to wear. I don't need anyone telling me what to do, Madison said, trying on a deep green cocktail dress. Then you married the right man, Iris said dryly. Mr. Harrington doesn't strike me as someone who wants a doormat. Jackson's eyes met Madison's in the mirror. No, I don't. When Iris finally left, Madison's closet had been transformed. She stood looking at clothes that cost more than she used to make in 6 months. This is insane, she said. Jackson came to stand beside her. He'd loosened his tie again, rolled up his shirt sleeves. You keep saying that, because it keeps being true. I married you 3 days ago. I'm living in a penthouse. Someone just spent the GDP of a small nation on dresses for me. Jackson's mouth curved. Welcome to my world. Is this what it's like for you? Madison turned to him. Constant performance? Constant judgment? Yes. His answer was quiet. Since I was a child. It must be exhausting. Sometimes. Jackson's expression was unreadable. But you learn to compartmentalize. Keep the real parts of yourself separate. What are the real parts of you? The question came out softer than Madison intended. Jackson looked at her. For a long moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he said, I'm still figuring that out. The honesty in his voice made Madison's chest tighten. Dangerous. This was getting dangerous. The next few days fell into a rhythm. Madison worked. Jackson worked. They coexisted in the penthouse like polite roommates. Except polite roommates didn't have to attend galas together. The first event was a charity auction. Madison wore one of Iris's selections, a midnight blue gown that made her feel like someone else, someone confident, powerful. Jackson appeared in a tuxedo that was frankly illegal. Ready? He asked. As I'll ever be. In the car, Jackson briefed her. Names of important people. Who to charm, who to avoid. Madison absorbed it all, her journalist's mind cataloging information. At the auction, held in a museum after hours, Madison stepped into a world she'd only observed from outside. Champagne, diamonds, conversations that cost more than most people's mortgages. Jackson's hand rested on her lower back as they moved through the crowd, a possessive gesture. For show, obviously. So why did it feel real? Madison Harrington. Jackson introduced her to a couple. My wife. The pride in his voice was perfectly calibrated, just enough to be believable, too convincing to be entirely fake. Madison shook hands, smiled, made small talk about the auction items. And she watched, the way women looked at Jackson with hunger, the way men assessed her, clearly wondering what she had that had landed the infamous bachelor. She was good at this, better than she'd expected. When a woman in an absurdly expensive dress made a snide comment about Madison's wedding, asking, "Wasn't it all rather sudden?" Madison smiled sweetly. When you know, you know. And Jackson knew. The woman blinked, disarmed. Later, Jackson leaned close. That was perfect. I'm a quick study. His hand squeezed her waist. Yes, you are. The action that night was intense. Jackson bid on several items. Art, a vacation package. When a necklace came up, sapphires and diamonds, he raised his paddle. 75,000, the auctioneer called. 80, a bid from across the room. Jackson raised his paddle again. 100,000. Madison's breath caught. Jackson, you don't have to. 150, he called. Going once, going twice, sold to Mr. Harrington. When the necklace was delivered, Jackson fastened it around Madison's neck. His fingers brushed her skin. For my wife, he said loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. Then, quieter, for only her. You're doing beautifully tonight. Madison touched the necklace. This is too much. Consider it part of your compensation. Appearances matter. But his eyes said something else, something Madison didn't dare interpret. On the drive home, Madison stared out the window. You're quiet, Jackson observed. I'm processing. What? The fact that I'm wearing $150,000 around my neck. That people tonight assumed I married you for money. That some of them were probably right to assume it. Jackson was quiet for a moment. Does it bother you? What they think? Madison considered. It should. But no, I know the truth. We both do. And the truth is, we made a deal. A smart one. This is business. Business, Jackson repeated. His tone was strange. Madison turned to him. Isn't it? His jaw tightened. Of course. Back at the penthouse, Madison tried to remove the necklace. The clasp stuck. Let me, Jackson said. He stood behind her, close enough that she could feel his warmth. His fingers worked the clasp. Time seemed to slow. Got it, he murmured. But he didn't step away. Madison turned. They were inches apart. This is just an act, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Right. His eyes dropped to her mouth. An act. Neither of them moved. The air between them was electric, dangerous. Then Jackson stepped back. Good night, Madison. He walked away, leaving her standing alone, heart racing, lips tingling from a kiss that hadn't happened. Madison touched the necklace, still warm from her skin. This is business, she whispered to herself. Just business. But in the silence of the penthouse, that lie felt more fragile than ever. 2 weeks into the marriage, Madison sat in a coffee shop near her office, staring at her laptop screen. She'd been avoiding her mother's calls. Couldn't anymore. The phone rang twice before her mother answered. Madison Claire Hayes, Do not tell me I had to learn about my daughter's wedding from Facebook. Hi, Mom. Hi, Mom. That's all you have to say? I'm sorry. It happened quickly. Quickly? You married Jackson Harrington. The Jackson Harrington. And you didn't think to mention it? Madison closed her eyes. I was going to tell you. When? Before or after the grandchildren? A pause. Then her mother's voice softened. Are you happy? The question caught Madison off guard. I think so. You think so? That's not a ringing endorsement of marital bliss. It's complicated. Marriage usually is. Her mother sighed. When can we meet him? Soon. I promise. Tell your father he's welcome to give the traditional shovel talk about taking care of his daughter. Except your new husband could probably buy our entire neighborhood. Money isn't everything. No, her mother agreed. But Madison heard the unspoken question. Then why did you marry him so quickly? When Madison hung up, guilt sat heavy in her chest. More lies. More performance. Later that day, Jackson called. Can you come home early? We have a problem. Madison's stomach dropped. What kind of problem? The media kind. Come home. The penthouse was full of people when Madison arrived. Jackson's assistant, a crisis management consultant, a lawyer, someone from PR. Jackson stood by the windows, his usual position when stressed, phone pressed to his ear. Madison caught fragments. No comment. Yes, we're aware. Handle it. He ended the call, turned. His face was carefully neutral. What's going on? Madison asked. A tabloid got photos of you from before we met. They're writing an article about your family, your father's business, the implication that you married me for money. Madison's blood ran cold. Photos? From when? College. Madison felt like she'd been punched. In college, her family had fallen apart. Her father's business had collapsed. There had been a period where she'd worked 3 jobs to stay in school. Late shifts, dingy apartments, ramen for weeks. She'd been so tired, so broke, and now someone had dug that up to make her look like a gold digger. Show me, she said. Jackson hesitated. Madison, show me. He handed her a tablet. The photos were brutal. Madison at 19, exhausted, working a gas station graveyard shift. At 20, serving drinks at a bar. At 21, standing outside a pawn shop. The article hadn't been published yet, but the draft headline was clear. Rags to riches, the convenient marriage of Jackson Harrington. Madison set down the tablet. Her hands were shaking. We can kill the story, the PR consultant said. Threaten legal action. Pay them off. No, Madison said. Everyone turned to her. No, she repeated. Don't threaten or pay. Let them publish. Jackson's eyes widened. Madison, those photos are real. That was my life. My father's business failed. We lost almost everything. I worked my way through college. I'm not ashamed of that. The PR consultant looked uncomfortable. But the implication that you married Mr. Harrington for money is partly true, Madison said. Then, to the shocked silence, I did benefit financially from this marriage. Jackson and I were honest about that from the beginning. But I also married a man I respect, a man I'm building a partnership with. Those things can coexist. Jackson was staring at her. Madison met his gaze. If they publish, I'll give an interview. I'll tell the truth. Not about the arrangement, obviously, but about who I am, where I came from. I won't hide like I have something to be ashamed of. The room was silent. Then Jackson spoke. Everyone out. Now. The assistants and consultants filed out quickly. When the door closed, Jackson crossed to Madison. That was either incredibly brave or incredibly reckless. Maybe both. His mouth curved. Definitely both. I'm sorry, Madison said. If this hurts your reputation, you're defending yourself. That doesn't require an apology. His hand came up, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was so gentle it made her ache. But I need you to understand something. I don't care about your past. About those photos. You earned everything you have. That's not weakness. It's strength. Madison's eyes burned. Why are you being so nice? We're supposed to be business partners. Maybe I'm expanding my definition of partnership. The air shifted. Jackson's thumb brushed her cheekbone. Have you been crying? No. Madison's voice cracked on the lie. Liar. I'm just tired. Of performing? Of all of it. Jackson pulled her closer. Not quite an embrace, but near enough that Madison could rest her forehead against his chest. For a long moment, they stood like that, his heartbeat steady under her ear. I'll handle the tabloid, he said quietly. You don't have to expose yourself. I want to. Madison pulled back. I want to tell my story. My way. All right, but you're not doing it alone. Jackson's expression was fierce. We'll present a united front. The next day, Madison gave an interview. A carefully selected journalist from a reputable outlet. She talked about her family, her father's business failure, the years of struggle. And yes, when asked, she admitted that financial stability had been part of her decision to marry Jackson. But I also married someone brilliant, driven, capable of surprising kindness. Money was a factor, but it wasn't the only factor. The article published that afternoon. The response was mixed. Some accused her of gold digging. Others praised her honesty. But the narrative shifted. Jackson started making her coffee in the mornings. Madison learned his schedule, his patterns. They had dinner together most nights, talking about their days, sometimes arguing about business strategies, sometimes just sitting in comfortable silence. It felt domestic, real, terrifying. One evening, Scarlett came over for dinner. She hugged Madison immediately. I love what you said in that interview. Very badass. Thanks. I was terrified. Couldn't tell. Scarlett glanced between Madison and Jackson. You two look good together. Madison's heart skipped. We're making it work. No, Scarlett said. You look happy. Both of you. I haven't seen Jackson this relaxed in years. Jackson shot his sister a warning look. Scarlett grinned innocently. What? I'm just saying, fake marriage or not, something about this is working. After Scarlett left, Madison cleaned up the kitchen. Jackson helped, which was still surprising. Your sister is perceptive, Madison said. Too perceptive. Jackson handed her a wine glass to dry. Do you think she knows? That this started as a deal? Probably. Scarlett always could read me. And now? Madison turned to him. Does she still think it's fake? Jackson was quiet, his gray eyes intense. I don't know. Do you? The question hung between them. Heavy. Loaded. Madison's heart hammered. We agreed this was business. Yes, we did. And is it? Madison whispered. Still? Jackson stepped closer. His hand came up to cup her face. His thumb traced her lower lip. This was supposed to be simple. It's not, though. Madison's breath caught. Is it? No. The word was barely audible. Not simple at all. He leaned down. Slowly, giving her time to pull away. Madison didn't pull away. When their lips met, it wasn't like the brief peck at City Hall. This was real, deep, full of all the tension that had been building for weeks. Madison's hands fisted in Jackson's shirt, pulling him closer. His arms wrapped around her waist, lifting her slightly. The kiss broke boundaries, shattered the careful walls they'd built. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Madison pressed her forehead to his. This complicates things. Jackson's laugh was unsteady. Understatement of the century. We should talk about this. Probably. Should we stop? Neither of them moved. Jackson's hands tightened on her waist. I don't want to. Madison looked up, meeting his eyes. Me neither. Then, let's not overthink it. Just for tonight? Just for tonight. He kissed her again. Softer this time. Sweeter. And Madison let herself fall into it. Into him. Tomorrow they could worry about complications, about contracts and consequences. Tonight, she just wanted to feel. Later, lying in Jackson's bed, her head on his chest, Madison whispered, "We're terrible at following our own rules." Jackson's laugh rumbled under her ear. The worst. His fingers traced patterns on her shoulder. Regrets? Madison thought about it. Honestly? No. Good. He kissed the top of her head. Me neither. The city lights glowed through the windows. Somewhere out there, people would judge them, criticize them, speculate about their marriage. But in this moment, in the quiet darkness, Madison didn't care. This was theirs. Real or fake. Business or something more. For now, it was enough. Madison woke up wrapped in expensive sheets in Jackson's arms. For a blissful moment, she just existed in that space. Warm. Safe. Then reality arrived, with its usual cruelty. What had they done? Jackson stirred, his eyes opening. Gray eyes that were softer than she'd ever seen them. "Morning," he said quietly. "Morning." Madison's voice was uncertain. They stared at each other, the weight of last night settling between them. Jackson spoke first. "We should probably talk about this." "Probably." Madison sat up, pulling the sheet with her. "But I have no idea what to say." He sat up too, running a hand through his hair. "We crossed a line. Several lines. Multiple lines. An entire highway of lines." His mouth curved slightly. "Are you sorry?" Madison considered. Honest answer? No. Terrified answer? Also no. Logical answer? We've made everything exponentially more complicated. Jackson reached for her hand. What if complicated isn't necessarily bad? What are you saying? I'm saying that maybe this arrangement has evolved into something neither of us planned for. Madison's heart raced. Jackson, we have a contract, an expiration date. We agreed this was temporary. People change agreements all the time. He moved closer. What if we explored this, actually gave it a real chance? The offer hung in the air. Tempting. Terrifying. I need time to think, Madison said finally. Fair enough. Jackson kissed her forehead. No pressure. But Madison, whatever this becomes, I don't regret last night. After Jackson left for an early meeting, Madison sat with her coffee, mind spinning. Her phone rang. Olivia. So, I've been reading about you, Olivia said without preamble. Rags to riches interview. Very dramatic. It's been a weird month. Weird? You married a billionaire. That's not weird. That's a fairy tale. Except fairy tales usually have clear endings. Madison stared at her coffee. What happens when you're not sure if you're in a business deal or falling in love? Silence. Then Olivia's voice, sharp with concern. Maddie, are you catching feelings? I don't know. Maybe. God, Olivia, what if I am? then you need to figure out what he feels before you get hurt. What if finding out breaks everything? What if not finding out breaks you? After the call, Madison made a decision. She needed perspective, distance, clarity. That evening, she told Jackson she was staying at her old apartment for a few days. His expression shuddered. "Are you running?" "I'm thinking. There's a difference. Is there? Because it looks like you're scared of what's happening between us." Madison met his eyes. "Yes, I'm scared. This wasn't supposed to be real, Jackson. We had rules, boundaries, and now I'm waking up in your bed, and you're talking about giving us a real chance, and I don't know how to process that. So you're leaving, for a few days, to clear my head." Jackson's jaw tightened. "Fine. But Madison? Running doesn't make feelings disappear. It just postpones dealing with them." Her old apartment felt small and shabby after the penthouse, but it was familiar. Safe. Madison spent 3 days there, working, thinking, trying to separate what she felt from what she'd agreed to. On day 2, flowers arrived. No card, just white roses. Jackson's signature. On day 3, a text. "I miss you, not as a contract obligation, just as a fact." Madison stared at those words for an hour. On day 4, she went back. Jackson was in his office when she arrived. He looked up, and the relief in his eyes was unmistakable. "You came back. We're still married." Madison set down her bag. "Technically, I live here. That's not why you came back, no." She took a breath. "I came back because I spent 3 days trying to convince myself this was just physical, or just convenient. And I couldn't. Because somewhere between the contract and the performance, this became real for me." Jackson stood, crossed to her. "Madison. But I need to know what this is for you. If it's just chemistry, or loneliness, or if it's actually something more. Because I can't do this halfway. I'm not built like that." Jackson cupped her face, his touch gentle, reverent. "When I asked you to marry me, it was a business decision. Cold, calculated. You were a solution to a problem." Madison's chest tightened. "But then you met my family and held your own. You defended yourself to the press with grace. You made me laugh, made me think, made me want to come home." His voice dropped. "You stopped being a solution and became someone I couldn't imagine my life without." Her breath caught. "I'm falling for you, Madison. Past tense isn't even accurate. I've already fallen." The words unlocked something in her chest. "This is terrifying," she whispered. "I know. We could ruin everything. Probably." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "But we could also build something extraordinary." Madison kissed him. Deep, full of everything she'd been holding back. When they broke apart, she said, Okay, let's try. Really try. Not as a contract, as something real." Jackson's smile was brilliant, transformative. The next few weeks were a revelation. They weren't performing anymore. They were living. Jackson started leaving her notes in the morning. Small things. "Coffee's ready." "You're beautiful." "Meeting until noon." Madison learned his tells. The way he rubbed his jaw when stressed. How he needed silence after difficult calls. The fact that he actually loved terrible action movies. They went on actual dates. Dinner, where they weren't being photographed. Museums, where they could just walk and talk. One Saturday, Jackson took her to a farmer's market. "You're kidding," Madison said. "Jackson Harrington at a farmer's market? I contain multitudes." He bought her fresh flowers and artisan bread and made her try 4 different types of honey. It was the most normal, wonderful day Madison had experienced in months. But the outside world didn't stop because they'd fallen in love. 3 weeks before Jackson's birthday, Eleanor Harrington called them to the estate. The entire family gathered. Victoria, Scarlett, and Eleanor, presiding like a queen. "The board is questioning the marriage," Eleanor said without preamble. "They think it's a sham to satisfy the will." Madison's stomach dropped. "That's ridiculous," Scarlett protested. "Look at them. They're clearly in love. Love isn't the question." Eleanor's gaze was sharp. "Legitimacy is. The board wants proof. Evidence that this marriage is real." "What kind of evidence?" Jackson's voice was dangerously calm. "They want a full investigation, financial records, background checks, interviews with friends and family. If they find any indication this was arranged, you lose everything." The room went silent. "Let them investigate," Madison said. Her voice was steady despite her racing heart. "We have nothing to hide." Eleanor looked at her. "Don't you?" Madison met her gaze. "Our marriage started unconventionally, but what we have now is real. They can investigate all they want. They'll find a relationship that's genuine." "Bold words," Eleanor observed. "I hope for both your sakes you're right." That night, Madison and Jackson sat on the penthouse terrace. The city sprawled below them. "An investigation could uncover the original contract," Madison said quietly. "I know. We could lose everything." Jackson took her hand. "Then we'll deal with it. Together. You could lose the company, your grandfather's legacy. I could lose you." He turned to her. "That scares me more." Madison's eyes burned. "When did you become such a romantic?" "When I fell in love with a woman brave enough to call me out and smart enough to see past my walls." The investigation began the next day. Interviews, document requests. Madison's friends were questioned. Her family. Co-workers. It was invasive and exhausting. One investigator, a sharp-eyed woman named Carol, interviewed Madison alone. "Tell me how you met your husband." Madison stuck to the truth. "Just edited. At a business meeting. He was difficult. I didn't back down. We connected. And the proposal was unconventional." Carol's eyebrow rose. "How so?" "He's not a traditional romantic." Madison smiled. "He asked me in a conference room. Very practical. Very him. And you said yes immediately?" "No." Madison was honest. "I said yes after thinking carefully about what I wanted. A partner. Someone who challenged me. Jackson offered that." The questions continued. Probing. Thorough. When it was Jackson's turn, Madison waited anxiously. Afterward, he emerged looking grim. They found the contract. Madison's world tilted. What? The original agreement? Someone leaked it to the investigation team. Her legs went weak. Jackson caught her arm, steadying her. "Then it's over," she whispered. "Not necessarily." Jackson's jaw was set. "The contract proves the marriage started as an arrangement, but it doesn't prove what we have now isn't real. We fight." How? By showing them the truth. The next day, Jackson called a press conference, against his lawyer's advice, against everyone's advice except Madison's. They stood together, facing dozens of cameras and reporters. Jackson spoke first, his voice clear and firm. 6 weeks ago, I married Madison Hayes. Our marriage began as a business arrangement to satisfy terms of my grandfather's will. That contract was legal, explicit, and yes, unconventional." Murmurs rippled through the room, but something unexpected happened. Madison wasn't just a solution to my problem. She became my partner, my confidant. the person I wanted to wake up next to every morning. What started as a contract evolved into something neither of us planned for. Love. He turned to Madison, taking her hand. I don't know if that satisfies the board's investigation, but it's the truth. Our marriage has become real in every way that matters. Madison stepped forward. I married Jackson initially for practical reasons, financial security, career opportunities. I'm not ashamed of that. But I stayed married to him, and would continue to stay married to him, because I fell in love. With his brilliance, his integrity, the way he makes me laugh, the way he sees me. Her voice strengthened. You can call our marriage a sham if you want. You can question our motives, but you can't deny what we've built, what we feel. That's real, and no investigation can change that. The room erupted. Questions shouted from every direction. Madison and Jackson walked out together, united. That night, they waited. The board would make their decision within 48 hours. What if they rule against us? Madison asked. Then I lose the company. Jackson's face was calm. And we build something new. Together. You worked your whole life for Harrington Industries. I worked my whole life for a lot of things. He pulled her close, but I only fell in love once. Madison buried her face in his chest. The 48 hours crawled by. Finally, Eleanor called. The board has made their decision. Jackson put the phone on speaker. Madison gripped his hand. They accept the marriage as legitimate. Eleanor's voice was unreadable. Your grandfather's will is satisfied. You retain controlling interest. Madison's knees buckled with relief. Jackson caught her. However, Eleanor continued, this family has been through enough drama. No more contracts, no more arrangements. If you two are going to stay married, do it properly. With commitment. With integrity, we will, Jackson said. His eyes on Madison. I promise. After the call ended, they stood in silence. Processing. We did it, Madison finally said. We did. Jackson's smile was radiant. You saved me, in more ways than one. We saved each other, Madison corrected. This was never one-sided. He kissed her. Soft. Sweet. Full of promise. So what now? Madison asked. We're actually married. For real. No contract. No expiration date. Now, Jackson said, we figure out how to do this. The real way. With all the messy, complicated, beautiful reality that entails. Sounds terrifying. Sounds perfect. 3 months after the board's decision, Madison sat in a coffee shop with Olivia, trying to explain married life. So let me get this straight, Olivia said. You fake married a billionaire, actually fell in love, survived an investigation, and now you're just happy? Madison laughed. When you say it like that, it sounds insane. Because it is insane, Olivia grinned. But you do look happy. Annoyingly happy. I am. Madison couldn't stop smiling. It's weird. We're actually building a life together. Have you talked about the future? Kids? Growing old together? All that normal marriage stuff? We're taking it one day at a time. Diplomatic answer. Honest answer. Madison sipped her latte. We're still figuring each other out. The relationship is real now. But we're also learning how to be married without the performance aspect. That night, Madison brought up the conversation with Jackson. Olivia asked about our future plans. She said casually. They were cooking dinner together. A new ritual. Jackson was surprisingly good at chopping vegetables. And what did you tell her? That we're taking things day by day. Madison glanced at him. But it made me realize we haven't actually talked about what we want. Long term. Jackson set down his knife. What do you want? Madison leaned against the counter. Honestly, I want to start my consulting firm. Build something that's mine. But I also want this. Us. I want to see where we can go without contracts or deadlines. I want that too. Jackson moved closer. And I want to make this marriage feel less like something we fell into and more like something we chose. We did choose it. In the end. Then let's choose it again. Properly this time. Madison tilted her head. What do you mean? Jackson pulled a small box from his pocket. Madison's breath caught. When I asked you to marry me the first time, it was transactional. Cold. You deserved better. His voice was rough with emotion. Madison Hayes, will you marry me? Again. For real. Because I love you. Because I can't imagine my life without you. Because you're the best decision I never knew I was making. Tears spilled down Madison's cheeks. We're already married, you ridiculous man. I know. But I want to do it right. With your family there. With friends. With vows that mean something beyond a contract. Madison kissed him. Yes. 1,000 times, yes. Planning a second wedding while being married to the groom was surreal. Madison's mother was thrilled. Finally, honey, a real ceremony. With flowers and a dress and actual guests. Mom, we're already married. But not married. Not in a church with your father walking you down the aisle. Madison looked at Jackson. Help? He grinned. Your family, your battle. Scarlett predictably was overjoyed. I get to be a bridesmaid. This is amazing. Even Eleanor approved. A proper Harrington wedding. As it should have been from the beginning. The ceremony was planned for late spring. Small, intimate, just family and close friends. Madison found herself actually excited. The first wedding had been a means to an end. This one was a celebration. But life, as always, had other plans. 2 weeks before the ceremony, Madison felt off. Tired, nauseous, emotional. It's probably stress, she told herself. Wedding planning is exhausting. But when the symptoms persisted, Olivia dragged her to a doctor. Madison sat in the examination room, waiting for test results, trying not to panic. The doctor returned, smiling. Congratulations, Mrs. Harrington. You're pregnant. The world stopped. What? About 6 weeks along. The doctor showed her the test results. Everything looks healthy. Madison walked out in a daze. Pregnant. She was pregnant. Olivia hugged her. This is amazing. Is it? Madison's voice was small. We're still figuring out the marriage. I'm supposed to start my business. Jackson and I haven't even talked about kids. Hey. Olivia gripped her shoulders. You love him. He loves you. You're married. This might be unexpected, but it's not a disaster. Madison drove home, mind spinning. How would Jackson react? Would he think she'd planned this? Would he feel trapped? She found him in his office, working late as usual. Hey. He looked up, smiling. How was your day? Madison sat down, her hands shaking. We need to talk. His expression shifted immediately. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. At least I don't think it's wrong. But it's definitely unexpected. Madison, you're scaring me. She took a breath. I'm pregnant. Silence. Jackson stared at her. Say something, Madison whispered. He stood, crossed to her, knelt in front of her chair. You're pregnant, he repeated. His voice was wondering. Yes, about 6 weeks. I know we didn't plan this. I know it's too soon. I know we're still figuring everything out, but… Madison! He cupped her face. Are you happy about this? She blinked back tears. I think so. Yes, but I'm also terrified. Me too. Jackson's smile was shaky. Completely terrified and completely thrilled. Really? Really? He pulled her into his arms. We're having a baby. Madison started crying. Happy tears. Relieved tears. Overwhelmed tears. Jackson held her, rocking slightly. This is unexpected. But so was falling in love with you. And that turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me. What about the wedding? We'll adjust. Make it a celebration of everything. Our marriage, our family, our future. Madison pulled back to look at him. You're really okay with this? I'm more than okay. Jackson's hand moved to her still flat stomach. I'm amazed. You're growing our child. How could I be anything but grateful? The wedding took on new meaning. Madison wore a dress with a slightly looser waist to accommodate her growing belly, barely noticeable yet. Her father walked her down the aisle, crying openly. Jackson's tough negotiations didn't prepare you for my daughter being stubborn, he'd told Jackson the night before. I'm counting on it, Jackson had replied. This time, the vows were personal. Handwritten. Jackson spoke first, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. Madison, 6 months ago, you were a stranger who challenged me in a conference room. Today, you're my wife, my partner, and the mother of my child. You've taught me that the best things in life can't be planned or contracted. They can only be felt. I vow to love you, to support your dreams, to be the partner you deserve. Not because of a contract, but because my life is better with you in it. Madison's turn. She clutched her handwritten vows, vision blurring. Jackson, I married you the first time for practical reasons. I'm marrying you now because you're the most extraordinary man I've ever known. You challenge me. You see me. You make me braver than I ever thought I could be. I vow to love you, to build a life with you that's messy and real and full of unexpected miracles. Because that's what we are, an unexpected miracle. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. When the officiant said, "You may kiss your bride," Jackson pulled Madison close. "Hello, wife," he murmured. "Hello, husband." The kiss was long, deep, full of promise. The reception was joyful. Dancing, laughter, speeches that were equal parts roasting and heartfelt. Scarlett gave a toast. I knew from the beginning that Madison was perfect for Jackson. She's the only person who's ever called him out on his nonsense. And somehow, she made my cold, workaholic brother remember how to smile. Madison, welcome to the family. Officially this time. Madison's father spoke next. When Madison called to tell me she'd married Jackson Harrington, I thought she'd lost her mind. But seeing them together, I understand. My daughter found someone who matches her strength, her intelligence, her heart. Jackson, take care of her, or I'll find you. Jackson laughed. Noted, sir. Late in the evening, Jackson and Madison snuck away to the terrace. The party continued inside, but they needed a moment. How are you feeling? Jackson asked, hand protective on her stomach. Good. Tired. Happy. Madison leaned into him. This day was perfect. Better than the first wedding? So much better. She looked up at him. Because this time, it's real. It was always real. Jackson kissed her forehead. I just didn't know it yet. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars. What do you think our baby will be like? Madison asked softly. Stubborn. Brilliant. Probably too smart for their own good. So, a combination of us. God help the world. Madison laughed. I'm scared, Jackson. Of being a parent. of messing this up. Me too. But we'll figure it out. Together. Like we've figured out everything else. You sound so confident. I'm not. His honesty made her love him more. I'm terrified. But I'm also excited. We're building a family, Madison. A real one. She turned in his arms. I love you. I love you too. More than I ever thought possible. They kissed under the stars, the music from their reception a soft backdrop. 6 months ago, Madison had walked into a conference room to meet a difficult client. She'd had no idea that decision would lead here. To love. To family. To a future she couldn't have imagined. Life was strange, unpredictable, full of contracts that became something more. But standing in Jackson's arms, their baby growing between them, Madison wouldn't change a single moment. Not the difficult beginning. Not the fake marriage. Not the investigation. Not the fear. Because all of it led to this. To real, and real, messy and complicated as it was perfect. Madison's pregnancy progressed with typical first trimester misery. Morning sickness that lasted all day, exhaustion that made her want to sleep through meetings, and emotions that swung wildly from joy to terror. Jackson was surprisingly attentive. He learned which foods she could tolerate. He rubbed her feet without being asked. He talked to her belly every night. Hello in there, he'd say, hand warm on her skin. This is your father. I'm terrified of you already. Madison would laugh, running her fingers through his hair. You're going to be a wonderful dad. I have no idea what I'm doing. Nobody does. We'll figure it out together. At 12 weeks, they went for the first ultrasound. Jackson held Madison's hand so tightly she almost lost circulation. The technician moved the wand across Madison's stomach, and there, on the screen, was a tiny form. Flickering heartbeat. Tiny limbs. That's our baby, Jackson breathed. His voice was awed. Madison couldn't speak. Just stared at the image of the life they'd created. Everything looks perfect, the technician said. Would you like to hear the heartbeat? At the sound, strong and steady, Jackson's eyes filled with tears. Madison had never loved him more. They told their families that weekend. Madison's mother cried. Her father looked proud and terrified in equal measure. Scarlett screamed and immediately started planning baby showers. Eleanor's reaction surprised everyone. She smiled, genuinely smiled. A great-grandchild. Her voice was soft. Your grandfather would have been so pleased. For the first time, Madison saw the woman behind the formidable exterior. Someone who'd lost the love of her life, who'd built walls to protect herself. Thank you, Madison said quietly, for accepting me, for giving us a chance. Eleanor took her hand. You proved yourself, my dear, not with contracts or appearances, but with integrity. You love my grandson. That's worth more than any arrangement. Madison's consulting firm launched in her second trimester. She'd been nervous about timing, but Jackson encouraged her. You've worked toward this for years. Pregnancy doesn't mean putting your dreams on hold. What if I can't manage both? Career and motherhood. Jackson cupped her face. Then we'll figure it out. Together. You're not doing this alone. The firm specialized in marketing strategy for mid-sized companies. Madison's first 3 clients came from her reputation. Smart, innovative, unafraid to challenge conventional wisdom. She worked from home most days, her growing belly making commutes exhausting. Jackson would bring her lunch, sit with her while she worked, offer insights from his own experience. They became true partners. In business, in marriage, in preparing for parenthood. But the past had a way of resurfacing. One afternoon, Madison received an email. The subject line made her stomach drop. "The truth about your marriage." She opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a detailed breakdown of their original contract. Every clause, every financial term, and a threat. "I'm giving you 72 hours to transfer $1 million, or I release this to every media outlet in New York. Your marriage will be exposed as a fraud. Your husband will lose everything. Choose wisely." Madison stared at the screen, nausea rising. Jackson found her 10 minutes later, pale and trembling. "What's wrong?" He was at her side immediately. Silently, she showed him the email. His expression went cold. "Whoever sent this is making a mistake. They have everything, Jackson. The entire contract. Every detail. Then we deal with it." His voice was steel. "I'm calling our lawyer and a cybersecurity team. We'll trace this email and find out who's behind it. What if they release it anyway? Then we tell the truth. Again." Jackson took her hands. "Madison, we've been through worse. We'll survive this too." The next 72 hours were tense. The cybersecurity team traced the email to a former employee of Harrington Industries. Someone Jackson had fired for embezzlement months before Madison ever entered the picture. "Revenge," the lead investigator said. "He got access to old files during his time there. He's been sitting on this, waiting for the right moment." "What do we do?" Madison asked. "We prosecute." Jackson's voice was hard. "Blackmail is illegal. He made his choice. But the contract is embarrassing, not illegal. We were honest about the arrangement becoming real. This doesn't change anything. The blackmailer was arrested before the deadline. The contract never went public." But the scare left Madison shaken. "What if someone else finds out?" she asked that night. "What if this follows us forever?" Jackson pulled her close. "Then we deal with it. Every single time." He kissed her temple. "Our marriage is real now. A piece of paper from 6 months ago doesn't change what we've built." Madison wanted to believe him. Mostly she did. At 28 weeks pregnant, Madison finally felt the baby kick during a meeting with a client. She gasped, hand flying to her belly. "Are you all right?" The client looked concerned. "Yes, sorry. The baby just kicked." "First time." The woman smiled. "That's wonderful. Do you know what you're having?" "Not yet. We're waiting to be surprised." That night, Madison grabbed Jackson's hand the moment he walked in. "Feel this." She placed his palm on her belly. They waited. Then, a strong kick right under his hand. Jackson's face transformed. Pure wonder. "That's incredible. That's our baby." Madison grinned. "Saying hello to Daddy." Jackson got down on his knees, talking directly to her belly. "Hello, little one. I felt that. You're strong already." The baby kicked again, as if in response. Madison ran her fingers through Jackson's hair, overwhelmed with love. This was her family. Imperfect. Unexpected. Built on contracts and compromise, and ultimately, choice. They'd chosen each other, over and over, through investigations and blackmail attempts and morning sickness. And they'd keep choosing each other, whatever came next. At 36 weeks, Madison was enormous and uncomfortable, and so ready to meet their baby. Jackson had become even more protective. He worked from home most days. He monitored her every movement. He'd assembled the nursery himself, refusing to let her lift anything. "I'm pregnant, not made of glass," she'd protested. "You're carrying our child. You're not lifting heavy objects. It's a throw pillow." A heavy throw pillow. Madison had laughed despite herself. 2 weeks before her due date, Madison woke up at 3 in the morning. Something felt different. "Jackson, she said quietly. He was awake immediately. "What's wrong?" "I think my water just broke." The next hours were a blur. Hospital. Contractions. Jackson holding her hand, looking more terrified than she'd ever seen him. "You've got this," he kept saying. "You're the strongest person I know." "I'm dying," Madison panted during a contraction. "You're not dying. You're bringing our baby into the world." "Same thing." The doctor checked her progress. "You're doing great, Mrs. Harrington. Almost there." 14 hours after arriving at the hospital, Madison pushed. Jackson stayed by her head, whispering encouragement, looking slightly green, but refusing to leave. "One more push," the doctor said. Madison bore down with everything she had, and then a cry. Small, indignant, perfect. "It's a girl," the doctor announced. They placed the baby on Madison's chest. Tiny, pink, screaming. Madison stared down at her daughter, at the miracle she and Jackson had created. "She's perfect," Jackson breathed. His voice was thick with tears. Madison looked up at him. "We made her. We made her." He kissed Madison's forehead, then gently touched their daughter's tiny hand. "Hello, sweetheart. I'm your dad." The baby's fingers wrapped around his. Jackson's tears fell freely. "What should we name her?" Madison asked softly. They'd discussed names, but never decided. Jackson looked at his daughter, then at Madison. "Grace," he said. "Her name is Grace. Grace Eleanor Harrington." Madison tested the name. "After your grandmother. She'll love that." Jackson's smile was radiant. "Grace," Madison whispered. "Welcome to our crazy family." The baby opened her eyes. Dark blue. Unfocused. Beautiful. In that moment, Madison understood. Every difficult choice, every compromise, every terrifying leap of faith, all of it led here, to this hospital room, to this baby, to this family built on honesty and second chances. She looked at Jackson. "I love you. I love you too. Both of you. More than anything in this world." Grace made a small sound. Content. Safe. Madison closed her eyes, exhausted and overwhelmed, and happier than she'd ever been. This was real. This was theirs. This was everything. What did you think of their story? Share your thoughts in the comments. On a scale from 0 to 10, what's your rating? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to follow all our stories, and check out more emotional stories